The peace table was long and cold, made of black stone from a dead planet. On one side sat the humans, dressed in gray uniforms, quiet and firm. On the other side sat the Volari, tall alien beings with glowing eyes and smooth silver skin. Their leader was Soraya, the High Diplomat, known across the stars for her pride and power. Jake Harper, the human diplomat, sat directly across from her. His face was calm, but his eyes watched every move she made. He was not new to this. He had spent years in space, talking to alien leaders, but Soraya was different. She didn't talk to humans, she talked down to them. "We are offering peace," Soraya said. Her voice sharp like a blade, but it is a kindness, not a need. Jake didn't blink. "Kindness is welcome, even if it comes late," he replied. Soraya smirked. She leaned forward slightly and whispered across the table, loud enough for the translator drones to catch her words. "Your species is weak and lucky. We let you live." The room fell silent. The other Volari diplomats chuckled softly. The human officers shifted in their seats, angry but trained to remain calm. Jake stayed still. He smiled, just a little. He had heard worse. He had survived wars. He had lost friends in battles where the Volari turned cities into fire. But now they sat here, pretending to talk peace, while Soraya insulted his people like it was a joke. He looked at her. Her silver skin shimmered under the artificial lights. Her expression was full of pride, of certainty. She believed she was untouchable, that no one, not even a human, could bring her down. Jake remembered the colony she had destroyed 2 years ago. 3,000 humans died. She called it a correction and never apologized. He had buried names and watched families cry on video calls. Now she sat across from him, acting like she was above it all. He took a deep breath and answered, "Perhaps weakness is a matter of perspective." She laughed, cold and loud. "No, human. Weakness is when you beg for peace because you cannot win war." That was enough. Jake made no sign of anger, but something in his mind clicked. She had crossed a line. She didn't just disrespect him, she humiliated humanity, again and again, in front of the galaxy's eyes. That night, after the peace talks paused for the day, Jake returned to his quarters. On the space station, the window showed stars spinning in slow patterns. His reflection stared back at him. He touched the glass and thought deeply. He could not challenge her in public, not without risking another war, and he could not insult her directly, or she would use it against Earth, but he could do something else. Something that would hit where she never expected, something personal. Soraya's pride was her greatest shield, but it was also her weakness. She believed humans were beneath her. That meant she would never expect one to rise close enough to sting her. Jake opened his communication panel and sent a message through official channels. He invited Soraya to a private dinner. To honor the peace process, he wrote, and to better understand the Volari culture. When Soraya received the message, she paused. Her aides looked confused. "You plan to dine with a human?" One asked. She smiled slowly. "Why not?" She replied, "It will amuse me." Back in his quarters, Jake waited for her answer. When the message came back with a simple "accepted," he leaned back in his chair and whispered, "Game on." The trap was set, not with guns or fleets, but with charm and patience. He would get close, make her trust him, and then, when the time was right, he would strike not with violence, but with consequences she couldn't ignore. He wasn't doing this for glory, not even for Earth. He was doing it for every human Soraya had insulted, every soldier lost, every child buried because of her pride. This wasn't diplomacy anymore. This was personal. Outside the window, a comet passed slowly across the dark sky, glowing green and blue. Jake watched it fade and whispered to himself, "Let her smirk now. She won't be smiling for long." The dining room was quiet, lit with soft golden lights. A long glass table stood in the center, filled with strange but beautiful food from both Earth and Volari worlds. Jake Harper stood near the edge, fixing his collar and watching the door. He had invited Soraya, the alien diplomat who once called humans weak. He didn't expect her to accept, but she did. The door opened with a soft hiss. Soraya stepped in, dressed in deep violet robes that shimmered like moonlight on water. Her expression was unreadable, her glowing eyes scanning the room with cool curiosity. "You requested a private dinner," she said, her voice smooth and sharp. "I had to see what a human thinks is worth celebrating." Jake smiled politely and bowed slightly. "Peace is worth celebrating, even if it's only temporary." She raised an eyebrow, but said nothing. She took a seat at the table and motioned for him to do the same. The meal began in silence. Only the sound of utensils touching plates could be heard. It wasn't romantic, it was strategic. Each one watching the other, measuring every word, every look. Jake kept the conversation light. At first, he asked about Volari culture, their ancient songs, their strange desserts with singing winds. Soraya talked, not with warmth, but with pride. She liked being asked. She liked being admired. "You humans are always curious," she said between bites. "Like children looking up at stars they cannot reach." Jake nodded, not showing the insult. "Children grow up," he said simply. That made her pause. She looked at him differently for a second, then sipped her drink. The meal continued, and slowly. Her posture relaxed. She spoke more freely, even laughed once, not loudly, but enough to surprise Jake. No one ever said she could laugh. As the plates were cleared, Jake stood and offered her a glass of Terran wine. "A gift from my homeworld," he said, "rare, but I thought it would be a fitting end to the evening." Soraya accepted the glass and raised it to peace, she said. Jake raised his glass too, to understanding. They drank. The wine was smooth, and the moments softer than before. For the first time, they weren't just human and alien. They were man and woman, sitting alone in the stars. Away from the world's expectations, Jake stepped toward the window, looking out at the galaxy beyond. "Do you ever wonder what it would be like if our species weren't at odds?" he asked. "If we had met as equals?" Soraya walked up beside him, the glow from her eyes reflected in the glass. "That is not how the universe works," she said. "The strong lead, the weak follow." Jake turned to her. "And who decides who is strong?" Soraya looked at him. Her face closed now. Her voice dropped lower. "The ones who win?" There was silence, thick and heavy. The kind of silence where a choice is made. Jake leaned closer. "And what if someone surprises you?" Soraya didn't step back. Her pride didn't allow it. She stayed still, waiting, testing, challenging. And then their lips met. Not with love, but with tension, fire, and something unspoken. A spark, maybe even a battle, disguised as a kiss. It didn't last long, but it changed everything. She pulled away slowly, her face calm, but her breathing faster. "This changes nothing," she said sharply. Jake nodded. Of course, but they both knew that wasn't true. She left soon after, saying little, walking out with her head held high. But her steps were slower than before, her thoughts heavier. Back in his room, Jake sat down and stared. At the spot where she stood, he hadn't planned to go that far, but the moment had taken them both. He wasn't sure if it was revenge anymore, or something else entirely. He opened his private log and made a voice note. "Operation Soft Fang, Phase 2 complete," he said quietly. "Target is emotionally affected. Behavior shift noted. Keep monitoring." He turned off the log and leaned back, thinking, what was he really doing? Was he trying to break her or understand her? Had he crossed a line? Thing was certain Syria wasn't as untouchable as she thought. And she knew it now. Out in the hall, Syria paused before entering the lift. She touched her lips once, then clenched her jaw. "Foolish human," she whispered. "You think you can play with fire and not burn?" But deep inside, something had already started to melt. Soraya stood alone in her quarters, staring at her reflection in the mirror. Her skin, silver and flawless, was glowing faintly under the dim blue light, but her eyes looked tired, unfocused. Something rare for a Valari leader. She pressed her hand gently to her lips, the memory of the human's kiss still fresh. "This means nothing," she told herself in a sharp whisper. "He means nothing." But her voice didn't sound as strong as it used to. There was a tremble there, small but real. And that scared her more than she wanted to admit. The kiss had happened days ago, and since then, she found herself thinking about him too often. His calm voice, his sharp eyes, his soft but strong presence. No human had ever stood so close to her, let alone dared to touch her. And yet, he had, and she had allowed it. Across the station, Jake was also not sleeping. He sat at his desk, fingers tapping against a metal cup. He had tried to tell himself it was just part of the plan. Make her feel vulnerable, draw her in, gain the upper hand, but he had felt something during that kiss, something he didn't expect. She wasn't just a cold diplomat or a proud alien. She was a person carrying weight, masks, and secrets. He could feel the war inside her, a battle she never let anyone see, and that made her dangerous, but also human in a way. The next day, the diplomatic talks resumed. Soraya walked in late, dressed in formal armor. Her face was stone, not a single emotion showing. Jake looked up and gave her a polite nod. She didn't return it, didn't even glance. His way, it was like the kiss never happened. The meeting was short, some progress made, some words exchanged, but underneath the surface, a strange tension burned between them like a slow fire. That evening, Jake returned to his room to find a message waiting on his private channel. It was from her. One line: "If you want to understand Valari ways, meet me in the observation chamber at cycle 7. He stared at the message, unsure if it was a trap or a test, but either way, he knew he'd go. The observation chamber was quiet and filled with stars. Giant windows opened out into deep space, where a nebula glowed softly in the dark. Soraya stood at the center, looking up, her back to him. "You came," she said without turning. "I did." Jake answered calmly, walking toward her. "You invited me." She turned slowly, her face softer than usual. No crown, no robes. Just a simple dress of thin fabric that shimmered like fog. "You humans. You always want to know why," she said. "You ask questions even when the answers bring pain." Jake stopped beside her. "Pain is still better than ignorance." She looked at him, this time with no armor in her voice. "My people are born to lead. We do not show weakness. We do not bend. And yet you're here," Jake said gently. "Speaking to me alone." She took a step closer, and her voice dropped lower. "You confuse me. You make me question things I was trained never to doubt." Jake reached out and gently touched her hand. She didn't pull away. Soraya sighed, long and slow, then leaned her head on his shoulder. "This is weakness," she whispered, "but I don't care." He held her carefully, not with passion, but with respect. "It's not weakness," he said. "It's truth." They stayed like that for a long time, silent in the middle of the stars, two enemies without weapons, two strangers now tied together by something neither fully understood. Later, in the quiet of her own room, Soraya sat on her bed with one hand on her stomach. She didn't know why she was feeling strange lately. Tired, dizzy, softer. She told herself it was stress, but deep inside, she knew it wasn't just that. Something had changed. She stood and looked into the mirror again. Her glowing eyes, always cold, now held a spark of uncertainty. Her heart beat faster than normal. Her body felt different. Her thoughts, always sharp, were now clouded with emotion and memory. She whispered one word: impossible. But the truth had already begun growing inside her. She had given herself to a human, even if for just one night. And now, the consequences were quietly waking inside her body, not with pain, but with life. Soraya sat on the edge of the medical chamber, arms crossed, face locked in icy calm around her. The Valari healers moved silently, scanning her body with light beams and bioprobes. She had demanded privacy, no aids, no guards, no questions. She already knew something was wrong. She just didn't want it confirmed. Your energy levels are unstable, the chief healer said carefully. There's a shift in your inner balance. Soraya nodded. Just give me the answer. The healer paused, hesitated, then stepped forward and handed her a thin, glowing panel. The life form inside you, he said softly. It is forming. Soraya took the panel in silence. Her eyes scanned the data, line by line, number by number. And then she saw it, right there, blinking on the screen. Hybrid fetus detected, human origin confirmed. Her hands trembled. What kind of mistake is this? She asked sharply, her voice rising like thunder. Check again. We did, the healer said, bowing his head 3 times. There is no error. A scream tore from her lips, sharp and raw. It echoed through the chamber. Walls, her fists slammed into the metal bench. Cracking the edge with pure force, the nearby drones retreated. Sensing danger, this cannot be, she shouted. This must not be. She stood and paced the room like a storm, rage flashing in her glowing eyes. A human, she hissed. He dared. He dared. The healer spoke quietly. Do you wish to remove the child? Soraya froze. The question sat heavy in the air. Her pride screamed yes, but something else. Something quieter, something deep and unknown, whispered no. She didn't answer. She stormed out of the chamber, cloak flowing behind her like a shadow. Her mind burned with fury, not just at Jake, but at herself. How could she let this happen? How could she, of all Valari, carry the child of a lesser species? Minutes later, she opened a private channel to the human quarters. Jake answered within seconds. His calm face appeared on the screen, unaware of the fire about to hit him. Good morning, Soraya, he said. I assume this isn't a social call. She didn't smile. You smug little parasite, she spat. You knew, didn't you? Jake blinked, confused for a moment. Knew what? She held up the scan, letting the data glow across the screen. I'm pregnant, human, and it's yours. For the first time, Jake's face lost its calm. He leaned forward slightly. Wait, are you sure? Don't insult me with doubt. She snapped. This is your doing. He took a deep breath, then looked at her seriously. I didn't plan that, Soraya. I swear. That was never the goal. Oh, so seducing me was just a peace mission. She growled. You tricked me, made me feel something so you could leave me like this. Humiliated, Jake frowned. It wasn't a trick. I didn't fake what I felt. But I didn't expect this either. Soraya slammed her fist on the console. You have no idea what this means. My people will tear me apart. The council will call for blood, and I will be the shame of my species. Jake stayed quiet for a moment, then said, Then don't be ashamed. Maybe this is something more than either of us expected. Her eyes narrowed. Don't pretend this is fate or hope. This is revenge, and you succeeded. Jake leaned forward again, his voice soft but firm. Soraya, I never wanted to hurt you, but I also couldn't let you keep stepping on us, mocking us. And maybe I went too far, but that child inside you, it didn't ask for any of this. She froze, his words striking something deep. It's not a weapon, he said. It's a life. Soraya ended the call without another word. Her chest rose and fell fast, her thoughts spinning out of control. She stood in front of the mirror once more. Placing a hand over her stomach, her reflection showed a warrior. A leader, a Volari female who had never lost a fight, but now? She carried a secret the galaxy would never forgive. Her steps were slower as she walked into the high chamber. The Volari council sat in a circle. Cold and waiting, eyes locked onto her. One of them asked, "Is it true?" Soraya raised her chin. "Yes, I carry a hybrid." Murmurs filled the room. Some were shocked, some angry. One even laughed in disgust. "What will you do?" The head counselor asked. Soraya's voice didn't shake this time. "I will do what I must. I am still Volari, but inside." She knew everything had changed. This was no longer just about politics or power. This was about survival, identity, and a child that could shatter everything they knew. The news spread faster than light across every Volari ship, every council hall. Every border outpost, the whispers grew louder. Soraya is pregnant. With a human's child, some said it was impossible. Others said it was betrayal. And a few called it war. Sira sat alone in her dark chamber. The only sound was the gentle hum of the ship's core. Her hand rested on her stomach, still flat, still silent, but different now. The child inside her hadn't moved yet, but it was real. Her healers confirmed it, again and again. Every time she closed her eyes, she could hear the council's voices. Echoing in her mind, "You've disgraced our race. You've broken protocol. Broken pride. Resign before we make you." They didn't care that she was the strongest voice in diplomacy. They didn't care that she had won peace through words where others used weapons. They only cared about the fact that her body now carried the blood of someone they called. Lesser, meanwhile, Earth was silent, too. The humans had heard the news. But no official response came. Only Jake Harper moved behind the scenes. He sent her a message, short and quiet. "I didn't expect this, but I'm here if you need me." She didn't reply. Soraya stared at her reflection again, the same face. Same glowing eyes, but they looked different now, softer, quieter. Like something inside had broken and refused to heal in the outer decks of her ship. Some Volari officers avoided her completely. Others whispered behind her back. One even looked at her and spat on the floor, gesture of shame among their kind. She could have ordered him punished, but she didn't. She was tired. Not of war or leadership, but of the weight pressing down on her from all sides. One evening, she walked through the observation wing, a place where she used to find peace, and there, standing near the glass, was Jake. He turned slowly as he sensed her presence. "Didn't think you'd come," he said softly. Soraya stepped closer, arms crossed. "You should not be here." "I'm not breaking rules," Jake replied, just looking at the stars. They stood in silence for a long moment, watching distant suns burn in the black. "You didn't answer my message," Jake said finally. "Because I didn't know what to say," she replied, her voice quiet. "I still don't." Jake looked at her gently. "Do you hate me?" Soraya shook her head slowly. "I hate what you represent, and I hate that I let myself feel something I wasn't supposed to." He nodded, understanding more than he showed. "Do you want to keep the child?" She didn't answer right away. Her fingers traced a line on the window glass. Then, finally, she said, "I don't know. Part of me says end it, erase the mistake, but another part wants to protect it." Jake stepped closer, not touching her, but just close enough to be felt. "It's not a mistake, Soraya. You're not weak for caring. You're strong for admitting it." Tears filled her eyes, but she blinked them away quickly. "Don't speak to me like I'm broken. I'm not," Jake said. "I'm speaking to you like someone who knows what it's like to feel alone." That hit her harder than she expected. She took a deep breath and turned to face him. "I don't want your pity, human. I don't want your help. I know," he said, "but I'll offer it anyway." She left without saying more, but something in her chest felt a little lighter. Later that week, the Valari High Council issued a formal notice. Soraya was to be removed from duty. Not for failure, but for dishonor. They wanted to bury the scandal quietly. She refused. She stood before the cameras, before her people, and said clearly, "Yes, I carry a hybrid child, and I will not be ashamed." Gasps, murmurs, anger, but also silence. For once, they had no answer for her bravery. After the speech, she collapsed in her quarters, her body shaking, not from fear, but exhaustion. Emotional pain was worse than war. Worse than wounds. Jake sent one more message. Just 3 words. "You were brilliant." She didn't reply this time either. But she smiled, just a little, before sleep took her. Outside her ship, the stars kept turning, quiet and endless. But inside her something was growing. Not just a child, but a change, a possibility she once thought impossible. The political storm wasn't over. But her private pain was no longer just hers to carry. She was not alone anymore. The air inside Soraya's command ship felt colder than usual. The corridors were quiet. Officers passed her without speaking. Some bowed with respect. Others looked away, but none dared speak what they were all thinking. She was still carrying the child, and that made her dangerous in a new way. In the Valari Empire, bloodline was sacred. Their leaders were chosen for purity, for strength, for tradition. Soraya had once been a symbol of all 3. Now, she was a question mark, a wild card, a threat to everything they believed. She stood alone in the strategy room, watching a live feed from the outer colony zones, not war, not yet, but movements, whispers. Something was stirring beneath the surface. Valari purists were gathering. Those who believed Soraya had betrayed the Empire wanted her removed. For good, they called it cleansing the throne. Her aide entered quietly. Placing a data slate on the table, "We intercepted a message," he said softly, "encrypted." But clear enough, she read it quickly, her eyes narrowing. The message was a direct order from one of the outer warlords. A team was being sent to handle the situation. "They're coming for me," she said calmly. "Yes, High Diplomat," her aide replied, "and they won't come alone." Outside the ship, in the shadows of a nearby moon, a stealth cruiser waited, black as the void. Its weapons were armed, and its mission was simply assassinate Soraya and destroy all records of the child. But Soraya wasn't planning to die easily. She walked into the war room and activated full lockdown. Her command staff looked confused. One of them asked, "Are we under attack?" She looked them all in the eyes and said, "Yes, but not from humans. This time, it's from our own people." Shock filled the room. "You mean Valari are targeting us?" "They are targeting me," she corrected. "And if we don't stand together, they'll turn on all of you next." Her voice was cold, clear, and full of something her officers hadn't heard in weeks' command. Some hesitated, but most stood by her, not because of the child, but because of who she still was. A leader who never backed down. An alarm rang. Red lights flashed. The enemy cruiser had just decloaked. Soraya didn't wait. Shields up, redirect. Power to the forward rail banks. Lock weapons and prepare to fire. One of her lieutenants spoke up. "Ma'am, it's Valari protocol to avoid direct fire on our own kind." She turned sharply. "They stopped being our kind the moment they planned to murder a child." Her ship moved fast, faster than the enemy expected. It fired first not to destroy, but to disable. Ion bursts crippled the assassin ship's engines, sending it spinning in place. Soraya ordered a boarding pod launched, not to finish them, but to look them in the eyes. She wanted them to see the warrior they had underestimated. Jake watched it all from the neutral diplomatic zone. Live footage streamed straight to his datapad. He couldn't look away. She had chosen to fight, not hide. And he knew this was no longer about revenge or pride. This was about something else now. Something deeper. She was protecting their child, not just because it was hers, but because it was theirs. After the battle, Soraya returned to her quarters. Her armor scratched, her energy low, but her spirit had never been clearer. She sat on the bed and pressed her hand gently to her belly. This time she felt it aflutter. She gasped. Softly, it wasn't pain, it was life. A tiny movement from the child within her, real and undeniable. For a moment, all the war, all the politics, all the pressure faded into silence. She whispered, "You will live, and I will protect you." A soft tone came from the comm screen. A private message from Jake. "I saw what you did," it said. No one else could have done it like that. She stared at the words for a long time. Then slowly typed back, "It's not over." Jake replied instantly, "Then I'm with you until it is." For the first time in weeks, Soraya allowed herself to close her eyes without fear. The war wasn't over. A new kind had just begun, not of weapons, but of truth, courage, and something no council could destroy. The war to protect the child of two worlds. The birthing chamber was quiet. Only the soft hum of medical machines filled the air. Soraya lay on the center platform, sweat glistening on her silver skin, her hands gripping the side rails. Her face, normally strong